Hello, Digital Monkey School students. Today, I want to focus on using motion paths to line up animations of two different actors. But first, we need to set up a scene. This is a continuation of Fruit Night mini tutorial. You can find FBXs to follow along. I will include a link to free files on my Gumroad in the video description. Remove the default cube, import a first actor, file import FBX. This file came from Mixamo. I highly recommend you check that website out. It's a database of motion capture animations and some cool models to go with it. The site also is capable of rigging your own custom models if you need a simple rig. Let's go ahead and set up a thrower. He needs to have a ball that he will throw. Let's go to pose mode and select two arm bones. Then we're going to press Shift S, cursor to selected. That puts it between those bones. Let's go back to object mode, Shift A, mesh. Let's create a placeholder object that we can throw. Let's choose icosphere. We can reduce the number of subdivisions, definitely reduce the size. Something like this should work just fine. And now let's go ahead and link our sphere to the armature. Shift select the armature. Let's go back to pose mode and choose now a single bone of the arm. Control P, set parent to bone. And now, as you can see, the sphere follows, but the sphere will also need to be released and then travel independently by itself. For that, let's return to object mode, return our 3D cursor to its default spot with Shift C. Now let's make a plane to catch the sphere. Shift A, mesh plane, 30 meters. Let's create also a little barrier to catch the sphere. Edit mode. Let's press E to extrude. Enter. Scale. Let's select the edge loop like this. Switch to faces. Hit to extrude one more time. And here we go. Now we have a barrier. And maybe let's move this just a little bit in front of our thrower. G, Y, and let's move it a little bit forward. Let's give collision to this geometry, and we do it by going to Physics, Rigid Body, change type to Passive. Let's click on the ball, and we're also going to give it Rigid Body, but we're actually going to make it animated. We want to find a good key for when ball release should happen. So maybe frame 49 should be that key. Let's key animated setting, move forward one key, and then turn off checkbox and key it again. Now come to frame 0, and by hitting spacebar, rebuild our animation. And convex hole, I don't think worked the way we intended it to, so let's change convex hole to mesh and rebuild it one more time. Beautiful. Ball was stopped by the barrier. Now let's do one last thing. Let's go to our scene preferences. Let's go to our rigid body world cache and bake our physics simulation. Now we can give a ball a motion pass. You do it by going to Object Properties, Motion Pass, and here we're going to say Calculate, and then we're going to say OK. And now here we go. This is the motion pass for a ball. Next, let's bring the / actor file, import, FBX, sword and shield / import. And we want to move this guy. He's in front of the thrower, GY. We also want to rotate him, RZ180. Let's check on the top view. And let's go ahead and press GX. And you see now I am able to look at my motion pass, and that will help me to align my actor with the sword. I want to do a couple of different adjustments to this actor. First of all, if you look at my animations now, they both happen at the same time. One guy is throwing and the other guy is slashing. So by the time the ball comes to him, he is already standing at the ready and not reacting. Therefore, what I need to do is I need to slide his keys forward, something like this. Now I want to see the motion pass of the sword. But if I click on the sword and I do the same exact thing where I say calculate, it will actually not calculate. And that is because of how the sword is parented to the armature of the knight. Therefore, what I need to do, I will need to go to edit mode. Let's go to top view. And then I'm going to select the vertex at the end of the sword and move the cursor there. Shift S, cursor to selected. Then I'm going to go back to object mode and I'm going to make an empty. Shift A, empty, a cube. Let's make that cube small because we don't need it big. Something like this. Let's select both the sword and the cube with Shift select. Go back to edit mode. If I click on this end vertex or the point vertex with my cube selected and I press Ctrl P, I can link my box to that vertex. So I'm going to say make vertex parent. And if I go back to object mode, you can see that cube is now following the sword. And now I can click on my cube and I can calculate its motion pass. Here we go. That gives me information about the distance between extreme keys of the slash, and from playing with it before, I concluded that the slash happening a little bit too fast, so I will probably have to scale the animation. Click on the armature, bring playhead to the very first frame of animation, and now let's press S and scale it. How much we scale it doesn't really matter because we can adjust it in this transform options window. Let's go with 2. If we click on a box and update the path, you can see that path got a lot more rounder and now we have more keys to work with. And this is perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to choose a good key for a frame of contact, maybe something like this. And with that, we can start moving a knight, G, Y, somewhere where he can intersect with his sword this motion path. Something like that, using this white tick as a reference. That's looking good. Now we have to make sure that when the ball is at this frame, he is actually hitting this ball with its sword. To do that, we're just going to slide the animation backward, something like this. And yeah, that looks really good. I don't want him to be too close to the guard because usually when you hit something, the maximum force is closer to the end of your sword. That's looking pretty good. Now the ball is going to make it to him. We can also update the path of this cube. There you have it. This is how you can use objects motion path to help yourself line up animation from 2 different actors. I hope you learned something new today. We are Digital Monkey School. Please like our channel and subscribe, and I'll talk to you in my next tutorial.